you have to realize from the outside looking in that as a farmer, my land is my base, and I have to have that base to have anything. So I have to take care of that, just as I feel generations before me had done. So it's only to my benefit and future generations' benefit for me to take care of that land through conservation practices, or even the reduction in herbicide use, anything to help make that land produce more for future generations, and in process, feeding the world.
Congressman Hurt, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you.
Has this first year in the 112th session met your expectations?
Well, you know, the last election was an election that was hard fought, and I think that the message that was sent by the people across America was that they wanted real change in Washington, and so I, along I think with the other freshmen who were elected in November, really have been and are committed to real change here in Washington, where we get away from this culture of endless, reckless spending. And the culture of overregulation of every sector of our economy. I would not be being honest if I didn't say I was very disappointed, or didn't say that I wasn't disappointed. I mean, when you stop and think about the progress we've made, it's hard to see progress. We've held the line, which I think is really important. But it's very hard to move a positive agenda when you pass dozens and dozens of bills over the course of the last 11 months. We send them to the United States Senate and we get nothing back, and that's been very difficult.
So what are your goals for next year?
Well, you know, I hope, it's my sincere hope that those who have been obstacles to progress, those who have been obstacles to giving voice to those policies that I think the American people want, it's my hope that they will be responsive, that they will listen to the people that they represent, and that you know, maybe the members of the Senate, Harry Reid as the majority leader, will take up these bills that are vital, I think, to the economy and to the restoration of our country.
You represent the 5th District of Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us a little bit about the makeup of that district and the types of agriculture you can find there?
Yeah, it is a very rural district. It runs from north of Charlottesville in Greene County all the way to the North Carolina line. Runs from the foothills of the Piedmont to the west in Martinsville and Henry County, and runs all the way to the east to Lawrenceville and Brunswick County. And so, a very diverse district. I grew up in the southern part of the district, in the rural part of the district. Tobacco historically has been a huge part of our culture and our economy. In addition, of course, we have sort of your standard ag products, you know, beef, with a lot of beef cattle. We have a lot of fruit in the northern part of the district where it's a little more mountainous. We have tremendous dairy production in the 5th District, as well as all sorts of you know, row crops that you might expect.
And on the bill to regulate farm dust, to block the EPA from regulating farm dust,
right.
The EPA has said that it doesn't intend to do so. So why is this legislation necessary?
Well, I think if you look at the abysmal record in Washington of overregulation, I think that one should not take the word of any regulator as to what they do and don't intend to regulate. If they can, they will. And I think that certainly I'm pleased that they seem to have at least seem to say now that they don't have any immediate plans to regulate farm dust. Clearly, the fact that they talked about it in their memos back in April that were circulated by the staff suggests that it's something that we need to weigh in on. And if they're not going to do it, then they should have absolutely no problem in supporting our good legislation. Contrary to what the EPA says, I will tell you that I have encountered folks in my district who absolutely believe that EPA intends to regulate dust. And in one case, I had a constituent who was reprimanded for having dust. It's a sawmill. It's down in the rural part of my district. It's out in the middle of the country, and he had tractor trailers hauling logs into the facility, the milling facility, and dust was getting kicked up in the driveway. And the regulator told him that he needed to get that under control, the dust under control, or else he was going to have to, bring an enforcement action of some sort. And he called it fugitive dust emissions. And of course, you can imagine that my constituent was very puzzled by this. And I think that anybody who lives in the country, who lives on a country road, or who lives in a county that has dirt roads, or lives anywhere near a farm where dust is a natural part of life, would find this equally as preposterous. And so that's the purpose of this bill, is to make it clear that the EPA does not have the power to regulate farm dust.
You also co-sponsor a bill introduced by Representative Bob Goodlatte of Virginia, which would cut back the use of corn ethanol if U.S. corn supplies were low. Can you share why this legislation is necessary and what you think its chances are of passing in the House?
Well, I think certainly dealing with the last question first. Clearly, it's a very, very divisive issue. Obviously, there are those in Congress who are wed to ethanol subsidies, and I guess we can understand why. But the two profound effects that those subsidies and that framework have is to, number one, is to obviously drive the prices of corn, or anybody who depends on corn, up. And you see that in grain prices. You see that in the cost of beef. And if you go to the grocery store, you're going to see the cost of all groceries going up. And I think that ethanol plays a part in that, to be sure. Secondly, obviously, it makes fuel more expensive. And as a consequence of these subsidies, and the real consequence of that for farmers is profound, because it costs more to cultivate their land, costs more to get their products from the farm to the market. These are all things that cut into the bottom line of the producer, and it's unacceptable. I sign on to the legislation because I think it's good. I think that ultimately we need to get away from these sorts of ethanol subsidies, because A, we can't afford it, and B, it distorts the market.
Can you tell, you've been in public service for about 10 years now. Can you tell us a little bit more about your background?
Well, I live in the little town of Chatham. I live in the same place where my family's been for generations. I was blessed after law school to be able to come back to Chatham and marry and have 3 little boys. We live on Main Street. I live in a house that's located directly across the street from my parents, and my wife's mother lives down the road in a nearby town. So it's a very nice existence in a little courthouse town. I was a prosecutor when I first came back to Chatham, and then I was on town council, and then was in the state legislature for about 9 years, 6 years in the House of Delegates, and 3 years in the state Senate, as a part-time legislator, a citizen legislator who had law practice. That was my primary occupation, but did that 2 months a year in Richmond. I can tell you, I'm very proud of our rural heritage. I'm very proud of our agricultural heritage. When I was a boy growing up, I spent 2 summers working on a tobacco farm. And so I have a real sense of the kind of work that takes. I feel that certainly the type of work that's done on a farm is the kind of work that made this country great in every sense of the word. And I think that it is certainly a wonderful part of our history that we should continue to be sustained by. Virginia, as you may know, is of course has the largest part of its economy is agriculture and forest products. And together, those two parts of our economy combine to generate about $75 billion in revenue, which is huge. And like I said, the number one product for us in Virginia. So we're very proud of that heritage, and everything that I can do here in Washington to support our growers, to support our producers, to support the agriculture, agribusiness community. I'm going to do it.
Virginia Congressman Robert Hurt, thank you for taking the time with us today.
Thank you, Sarah, for the opportunity to be with you.